1. What is success? You cannot achieve what you have not defined. The problem for most people who want to be successful is not that they can't achieve success. The main obstacle for them is that they misunderstand success. Mal B.D. Babcock said, "One of the most common mistakes and one of the costliest is thinking that success is due to some genius, some magic. Something or other which we do not possess." The traditional picture of success. What is success? What does it look like? Most people have a vague picture of what it means to be a successful person that looks something like this. The wealth of Bill Gates. The physique of Arnold Schwarzenegger or Marilyn Monroe. The intelligence of Albert Einstein, the athletic ability of Michael Jordan. The business prowess of Donald Trump. The social grace and poise of Jackie Kennedy, the imagination of Walt Disney, and the heart of Mother Teresa. That sounds absurd, but it's closer to the truth than we would like to admit. Many of us picture success as looking like one other than who we are, and we especially can't be 8 other people. And more important than that, you shouldn't want to be. If you tried to become just like even one of these other people, you wouldn't be successful. You would be a bad imitation of them, and you would eliminate the possibility of becoming the person you were meant to be. The right picture of success. So how do you get started on the journey toward success? What does it take to be a success? 2 things are required: the right picture of success and the right principles for getting there. The picture of success isn't the same for any 2 people because we're all created differently as unique individuals. But the process is the same for everyone. It's based on principles that do not change. After more than 35 years of knowing successful people and studying the subject, I have developed the following definition of success. Success is knowing your purpose in life, growing to reach your maximum potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. You can see by this definition that success is a journey rather than a destination. No matter how long you live or what you decide to do in life, you will never exhaust your capacity to grow toward your potential or run out of opportunities to help others. When you see success as a journey, you'll never have the problem of trying to arrive at an elusive final destination. And you'll never find yourself in a position where you have accomplished some final goal, only to discover that you're still unfulfilled and searching for something else to do. Another benefit of focusing on the journey of success instead of on arriving at a destination or achieving a goal is that you have the potential to become a success today. The very moment that you make the shift to finding your purpose, growing to your potential, and helping others, successful is something you are right now, not something you vaguely hope one day to be. To get a better handle on these aspects of success, let's take a look at each one of them. Knowing your purpose. Nothing can take the place of knowing your purpose. Millionaire industrialist Henry J. Kaiser, the founder of Kaiser Aluminum as well as the Kaiser Permanente healthcare system, said, "The evidence is overwhelming that you cannot begin to achieve your best unless you set some aim in life." Or put another way, if you don't try actively to discover your purpose, you're likely to spend your life doing the wrong things. I believe that God created every person for a purpose. According to psychologist Viktor Frankl, everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus everyone's task is as unique as his specific opportunity to implement it. Each of us has a purpose for which we were created. Our responsibility, and our greatest joy, is to identify it. Here are some questions to ask yourself to help you identify your purpose. For what am I searching? All of us have a strong desire buried in our hearts, something that speaks to our deepest thoughts and feelings, something that sets our souls on fire. Some people have a strong sense of what that is when they're just children. Others take half a lifetime to discover it. But no matter what, it's there. You only need to find it. Why was I created? Each of us is different. No one else in the world has exactly the same gifts, talents, background, or future. That's one of the reasons it would be a serious mistake for you to try to be someone other than yourself. Think about your unique mix of abilities, the resources available to you, your personal history, and the opportunities around you. If you objectively identify these factors and discover the desire of your heart, you will have done a lot toward discovering your purpose in life. Do I believe in my potential? You cannot consistently act in a manner inconsistent with the way you see yourself. If you don't believe that you have potential, you will never try to reach it. And if you aren't willing to work toward reaching your potential, you will never be successful. You should take the advice of President Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "Do what you can, with what you have, where you are." If you do that with your eyes fixed on your life purpose, what else can be expected of you? When do I start? Some people live their lives from day to day, allowing others to dictate what they do and how they do it. They never try to discover their true purpose for living. Others know their purpose, yet never act on it. They are waiting for inspiration or permission or an invitation to get started. But if they wait much longer, they'll never get going. So the answer to the question, when do I start, is now. Growing to your potential. Novelist H.G. Wells held that wealth, notoriety, place, and power are no measures of success whatsoever. The only true measure of success is the ratio between what we might have been and what we have become. In other words, success comes as the result of growing to our potential. It's been said that our potential is God's gift to us, and what we do with it is our gift to Him. But at the same time, our potential is probably our greatest untapped resource. Henry Ford observed, "There is no man living who isn't capable of doing more than he thinks he can do." We have nearly limitless potential, yet too few ever try to reach it. Why? The answer lies in this: we can do anything, but we can't do everything. Many people let everyone around them decide their agenda in life. As a result, they never really dedicate themselves to their purpose in life. They become a jack of all trades, master of none, rather than a jack of few trades, focused on one. If that describes you more than you'd like, you're probably ready to take steps to make a change. Here are 4 principles to put you on the road to growing toward your potential. 1. Concentrate on one main goal. Nobody ever reached her potential by scattering herself in 20 directions. Reaching your potential requires focus. That's why it's so important for you to discover your purpose. Once you've decided where to focus your attention, you must decide what you are willing to give up to do it. And that's crucial. There can be no success without sacrifice. The two go hand in hand. If you desire to accomplish little, sacrifice little. But if you want to accomplish great things, be willing to sacrifice much. 2. Concentrate on continual improvement. David D. Glass, Chief Executive Officer of Walmart Stores, was once asked whom he admired most. His answer was Walmart founder Sam Walton. He remarked, "There's never been a day in his life, since I've known him, that he didn't improve in some way." Commitment to continual improvement is the key to reaching your potential and to being successful. Each day you can become a little bit better than you were yesterday. It puts you one step closer to your potential. And you'll also find that what you get as the result of your growth is not nearly as important as what you become along the way. 3. Forget the past. My friend Jack Hayford, founding pastor of Church on the Way in Van Nuys, California, commented, "The past is a dead issue, and we can't gain any momentum moving toward tomorrow if we are dragging the past behind us." Unfortunately, that's what too many people do. They drag the past with them wherever they go. And as a result, they never make any progress. I like the attitude of Cyrus Curtis, who once owned the Saturday Evening Post. He had a sign hanging in his office that announced, "Yesterday ended last night." It was his way of reminding himself and his employees that the past is done, and we should be looking forward, not back. Maybe you've made a lot of mistakes in your life, or you've had an especially difficult past with many obstacles. Work your way through it and move on. Don't let it prevent you from reaching your potential. If you need inspiration, think of other people who overcame seemingly insurmountable obstacles, such as Booker T. Washington. He was born into slavery and was denied access to the resources available to white society, but he never let that prevent him from pursuing his potential. He founded the Tuskegee Institute and the National Black Business League. He said, "I have learned that success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which one has overcome while trying to succeed." Think of Helen Keller, who lost her sight and hearing at 19 months old. Helen overcame her severe disabilities, went on to graduate from Radcliffe College, and became an author, noted lecturer, and champion for people who are blind. Think of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In 1921, at the age of 39, he had a severe case of polio, which left him disabled and in terrible pain. He never walked again without assistance. But he didn't let that stop him from pursuing his potential. 8 years later, he became the governor of New York, and in 1932, he was elected President of the United States. No doubt, you can think of others who have overcome tragedies or past mistakes to pursue their potential. You may even know personally some people who fought back from adversity to become successful. Let them inspire you. No matter what you've faced in the past, you have the potential to overcome it. 4. Focus on the future. Baseball Hall of Famer Yogi Berra declared, "The future isn't what it used to be." Although that may be true, it's still the only place we have to go. Your potential lies ahead of you, whether you're 8, 18, 48, or 80. You still have room to improve yourself. You can become better tomorrow than you are today. As the Spanish proverb says, "He who does not look ahead remains behind." Sowing seeds that benefit others. When you know your purpose in life and are growing to reach your maximum potential, you're well on your way to being a success. But there's one more essential part of the journey: helping others. Without that aspect, the journey can be a lonely and shallow experience. It's been said that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Physician, theologian, and philosopher Albert Schweitzer stated it even more strongly: the purpose of human life is to serve, and to show compassion and the will to help others. For him, the journey of fulfilling his purpose led to Africa, where he served people for many years. For you, sowing seeds that benefit others probably won't mean traveling to another country to serve the poor, unless that is the purpose you were born to fulfill. And if it is, you won't be satisfied until that's what you're doing. However, if you're like most people, helping others is something you can do right here at home, whether it's spending more time with your family, developing an employee who shows potential, helping people in the community, or putting your desires on hold for the sake of your team at work. The key is to find your purpose and help others while you're pursuing it. Entertainer Danny Thomas insisted that all of us are born for a reason, but all of us don't discover why. Success in life has nothing to do with what you gain in life or accomplish for yourself. It's what you do for others. The journey towards success and fulfillment will not look the same for everyone because the picture of success is different for every person. But the principles used to take the journey don't change. They can be applied at home, in school, at the office, on the ball field, and in church. That's what the remainder of this book is about: the principles that can help you work toward knowing your purpose, growing to your potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. It doesn't matter where you are now. You can learn and apply these ideas. You can be successful today. 2. What direction should I go? You will never go farther than your dreams take you. If you live in a town near the ocean, you may have seen advertisements for cruises to nowhere. Maybe you've even been on one. People get on board a cruise ship, and when they leave the pier, instead of setting out for a lush island or other exotic location, they go out to sea and travel in circles for a couple of days. Meanwhile, they dine on sumptuous meals, lounge around the pool, enjoy the shows, and participate in onboard activities. It's similar to checking into a fine hotel or resort. The problem for a lot of people is that their lives are too much like those cruises. They're on a trip with no set destination, no charted course. They're in a holding pattern, and they occupy their time pursuing pleasures or engaging in activities that don't have any lasting benefit. Meanwhile, they travel in circles. In the end, they finish no better than they started. A cruise to nowhere may be a fun way to occupy a few days of vacation time, but it's no way to spend your life. As I mentioned before, success is a journey. You don't suddenly become successful when you arrive at a particular place or achieve a certain goal. But that doesn't mean you should travel without identifying a destination. You can't fulfill your purpose and grow toward your potential if you don't know what direction you should be going. You need to identify and sail toward your destination. In other words, you need to discover your dream. The power of a dream. I believe that each of us has a dream placed in the heart. I'm not talking about wanting to win the lottery. That kind of idea comes from a desire to escape our present circumstances, not to pursue a heartfelt dream. I'm talking about a vision deep inside that speaks to the very soul. It's the thing we were born to do. It draws on our talents and gifts. It appeals to our highest ideals. It sparks our feelings of destiny. It is inseparably linked to our purpose in life. The dream starts us on the success journey. When I look for the name of a person who identified and lived out his dream, I think of auto industry pioneer and visionary Henry Ford. He asserted, "The whole secret of a successful life is to find out what it is one's destiny to do, and then do it." Ford's dream grew out of his interest in anything mechanical. From boyhood, he had a passion for studying and tinkering with machinery. He taught himself about steam engines, clocks, and combustion engines. He traveled around the countryside doing repair work for free, just so he could get his hands on machines. He became a mechanic and watchmaker. He even worked as a night engineer for the Detroit Edison Company. Ford became increasingly intrigued by the idea of the automobile, and he devoted more and more of his attention to it. In 1896, he built his first car in a shed behind his house. After that, he continued to think about how to improve his early efforts, and he studied the work of other car builders, including that of Ransom E. Olds, who manufactured the first Oldsmobile in 1900. Out of his love for machinery and intrigue over the automobile grew Ford's dream, the creation of an inexpensive mass-produced automobile. Until then, the new horseless carriage had been an expensive luxury item, available to only the rich. But Ford was determined to put the automobile within the reach of the common person. In 1899, he helped form the Detroit Motor Company. But when his fellow organizers balked at the idea of manufacturing their product inexpensively in order to sell it to the masses, he left the company. However, he held on to his dream, and his efforts finally paid off. In 1903, he organized the Ford Motor Company and began to produce the Model T. The first year his new company produced just under 6,000 cars. But only 8 years later, they produced more than 500,000. And they managed to reduce the initial retail price from $850 to only $360. Ford's dream became a reality. Ford has been called a genius and has been credited with the birth of the assembly line and mass production. But no matter what he had going for him, his greatest asset was his dream and his willingness to devote himself to it. A dream does many things for us. A dream gives us direction. Have you ever known a person who didn't have a clue concerning what she wanted in life, yet was highly successful? I haven't either. We all need something worthwhile to aim for. A dream provides us with that. It acts as a compass, telling us the direction we should travel. And until we've identified that right direction, we'll never know for sure that our movement is actually progress. Our actions are just as likely to take us backward instead of forward. If you move in any direction other than toward your dream, you'll miss out on the opportunities necessary to be successful. A dream increases our potential. Without a dream, we may struggle to see potential in ourselves because we don't look beyond our current circumstances. But with a dream, we begin to see ourselves in a new light, as having greater potential and being capable of stretching and growing to reach it. Every opportunity we meet, every resource we discover, every talent we develop, becomes a part of our potential to grow toward that dream. The greater the dream, the greater the potential. Paul Hovey said, "A blind man's world is bounded by the limits of his touch, an ignorant man's world by the limits of his knowledge, a great man's world by the limits of his vision." If your vision, your dream, is great, then so is your potential for success. A dream helps us prioritize. A dream gives us hope for the future, and it also brings us power in the present. It makes it possible for us to prioritize everything we do. A person who has a dream knows what he is willing to give up in order to go up. He is able to measure everything he does according to whether or not it contributes to the dream, concentrating his attention on the things that bring him closer to it and giving less attention to everything that doesn't. Ironically, many people do exactly the opposite. Rather than focus on their one dream and let go of the less important things, they want to keep every option open. But when they do, they actually face more problems because decision-making becomes overly complicated for them. They are like a performer who spins plates. You might have seen one of those acts on an old television variety program such as The Ed Sullivan Show. The performer puts a plate on top of a long, thin rod and spins it. As long as the plate is spinning, it balances on the end of the rod. He then places the rod in a device so that it stands on end. Then he does the same thing with another rod and plate, and then another. He keeps adding plates until he has a whole bunch of them spinning. As he goes, he must occasionally stop, run back, and put more spin on the previous plates so that they don't fall. A performer who is really good at this can get quite a few plates spinning very quickly in the beginning. But as time goes by, even the good ones find it harder to make any progress adding new plates because they're spending all their time going back to keep the previous ones spinning. Getting that last plate up and spinning usually takes an incredibly long time. Keeping all your options open is a lot like that. At first, it's fun to have so many possibilities open before you. It seems to be an excellent idea. But as time goes by, you can't make any progress because you spend all your time preserving the options rather than moving forward. When you have a dream, you don't have that problem. You can expend your time and energy only on the plates that bring you closer to your dream. You can allow all the others to stop spinning and crash to the floor. They are unimportant. That knowledge frees up your time to concentrate on the few things that make a difference, and it keeps you on the right track. A dream adds value to our work. A dream puts everything we do into perspective. Even the tasks that aren't exciting or immediately rewarding take on added value when we know they ultimately contribute to the fulfillment of a dream. Each activity becomes an important piece in that bigger picture. It reminds me of the story of a reporter who talked to 3 construction workers pouring concrete at a building site. "What are you doing?" he asked the first worker. "I'm earning a paycheck," he grumbled. The reporter asked the same question of a second laborer, who looked over his shoulder and said, "What's it look like I'm doing?" "I'm pouring concrete." Then he noticed a third man, who was smiling and whistling as he worked. "What are you doing?" he asked the third worker. He stopped what he was doing and said excitedly, "I'm building a shelter for the homeless." He wiped his hands clean on a rag and then pointed, "Look, over there is where the kitchen will be. And that over there is the women's dormitory. This here." Each man was doing the same job. But only the third was motivated by a larger vision. The work he did was fulfilling a dream, and it added value to all his efforts. Vince Lombardi stated, "I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, his greatest fulfillment to all he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle, victorious." A dream provides the perspective that makes that kind of effort possible. A dream predicts our future. Catherine Logan said, a vision foretells what may be ours. It is an invitation to do something. With a great mental picture in mind, we go from one accomplishment to another, using the materials about us only as stepping stones to that which is higher and better and more satisfying. We thus become possessors of the unseen values which are eternal. When we have a dream, we're not just spectators sitting back, hoping that everything turns out all right. We're taking an active part in shaping the purpose and meaning of our lives. And the winds of change don't simply blow us here and there. Our dream, when pursued, is the most likely predictor of our future. That doesn't mean we have any guarantees, but it does increase our chances for success tremendously. Where will your dream take you? Dare to dream and act on that dream. Do it in spite of problems, circumstances, and obstacles. History is filled with men and women who faced adversity and achieved success in spite of it. For example, the Greek orator Demosthenes stuttered. The first time he tried to make a public speech, he was laughed off the rostrum. But he had a dream of being a notable speaker. He pursued that dream and grew toward his potential. It is said that he used to put pebbles in his mouth and practice speaking over the sound of the crashing surf at the seashore. His persistence paid off. He lived his dream. He became the greatest orator of the ancient world. Others dared to dream and became successes. Napoleon, despite humble parentage, became an emperor. Beethoven brought to life his inner vision for music when he composed symphonies, even after he lost his hearing. Charles Dickens dreamed of becoming a writer and became the most read novelist in Victorian England, despite being born into poverty. Oliver Wendell Holmes noted, "The great thing in this world is not so much where we are but in what direction we are moving." This is also one of the great things about having a dream. You can pursue your dream no matter where you are today. And what happened in the past isn't as important as what lies ahead in the future. As the saying goes, no matter what a person's past may have been, his future is spotless. You can begin pursuing your dream today. 3. What role does failure play in success? You will not succeed unless you are willing to fail. Oh, many people believe the process of achieving success is supposed to be easy. The great American inventor Thomas Edison observed that attitude among people. And this is how he responded to it. Failure is really a matter of conceit. People don't work hard because, in their conceit, they imagine they'll succeed without ever making an effort. Most people believe that they'll wake up someday and find themselves rich. Actually, they've got it half right, because eventually they do wake up. Each of us has to make a choice. Are we going to sleep life away, avoiding failure at all costs? Or are we going to wake up and realize this: failure is simply a price we pay to achieve success? Failure is not. If you can change your perspective on failure, it will help you to persevere and ultimately achieve your desires. So how should you judge failure? By taking a look at 7 things failure is not. 1. People think failure is avoidable. It's not. Everybody fails, errs, and makes mistakes. You've heard the saying, to err is human, to forgive divine. Alexander Pope wrote that more than 250 years ago. And he was only paraphrasing a saying that was common 2,000 years ago, during the time of the Romans. Things today are the same as they were then. If you're a human being, you're going to make mistakes. You're probably familiar with Murphy's Law and the Peter Principle. Recently I came across something called Rules for Being Human. I think it describes well the state we're in as people. Rule number 1, you will learn lessons. Rule number 2, there are no mistakes, only lessons. Rule number 3, a lesson is repeated until it is learned. Rule number 4, if you don't learn the easy lessons, they get harder. Pain is one way the universe gets your attention. Rule number 5, you'll know you've learned a lesson when your actions change. You see, writer Norman Cousins was right when he said, "The essence of man is imperfection." So know that you're going to make mistakes. 2. People think failure is an event. It's not. Growing up, I thought that success and failure came in a moment. The best example I can think of is taking a test. If you got an F, it meant you failed. But I've come to realize that failure is a process. If you flunk a test, it doesn't mean you just failed a one-time event. The F shows that you neglected the process leading up to the test. Failure is like success. It's not someplace you arrive. Just as success is not a single event, neither is failure. Success or failure comes from how you deal with life along the way. Truly, no one can conclude that he's failed until he breathes his last breath. Until then, he's still in process and the jury is still out. 3. People think failure is objective. It's not. When you err, whether you miscalculate crucial figures, miss a deadline, blow a deal, make a poor choice concerning your children, or otherwise fumble a ball, what determines whether that action was a failure? Do you look at the size of the problem it causes or the amount of money it costs you or your organization? Is it determined by how much heat you have to take from your boss or by the criticism of your peers? No. Failure isn't determined that way. The real answer is that you are the only person who can really label what you do a failure. It's subjective. Your perception of and response to your mistakes determine whether your actions are failure. Did you know that entrepreneurs almost never get their first business off the ground? Or their second? Or their third? According to Tulane University business professor Lisa Amos, the average for entrepreneurs is 3.8 failures before they finally make it in business. They are not deterred by problems, mistakes, or errors. Why? Because they don't see setbacks as failure. They recognize that 3 steps forward and 2 steps back still equals 1 step forward. And as a result, they overcome average and become achievers. 4. People think failure is the enemy. It's not. Most people try to avoid failure like the plague. They're afraid of it. But it takes adversity to create success. Basketball coach Rick Pitino states it even more strongly, failure is good, he says. It's fertilizer. Everything I've learned about coaching I've learned from making mistakes. People who see failure as the enemy are captive to those who conquer it. Herbert V. Brock now believes the fellow who never makes a mistake takes his orders from one who does. Observe any highly successful person, and you'll discover a person who doesn't see a mistake as the enemy. That is true in any endeavor. As musicologist Eloise Ristad said, when we give ourselves permission to fail, we at the same time give ourselves permission to excel. 5. People think failure is irreversible. It's not. There's an old saying in Texas, it doesn't matter how much milk you spill as long as you don't lose your cow. In other words, mistakes are not irreversible. Keep everything in perspective. The problems come when you see only the spilled milk and not the bigger picture. People who see failure correctly take it in stride. Mistakes don't make them want to give up. Success doesn't make them think that they are set up. Every event, whether good or bad, is just one small step in the process of living. Or as Tom Peters says, if silly things were not done, intelligent things would never happen. 6. People think failure is a stigma. It's not. Mistakes are not permanent markers. I love the perspective of Senator Sam Ervin Jr. He remarked, defeat may serve as well as victory to shake the soul and let the glory out. That's the way we need to look at failure. When you make mistakes, don't let them get you down. And don't let yourself think of them as a stigma. Make each failure a step to success. 7. People think failure is final. It's not. Even what may appear to be a huge failure doesn't need to keep you from achieving. Take a look at the story of Sergio Zyman. He was the mastermind behind New Coke, something that marketing consultant Robert McMath sees as one of the greatest product failures of all time. 1 Zyman, who successfully introduced Diet Coke, believed that Coca-Cola needed to act boldly to reverse its 20-year market decline against its rival Pepsi. His solution was to stop offering the drink that had been popular for nearly 100 years, change the formula, and offer it as new Coke. The move was an abysmal failure that lasted 79 days and cost the company about $100 million. People hated New Coke. And it caused Simon to leave the company. But Simon's problems with New Coke didn't keep him down. In fact, he doesn't even see them as failure. Years later, when asked if it was a mistake, Simon answers, "No, categorically." A failure? No. A blunder, a misstep, a bust? Another word between bust and, something else, he replies. Now if you say to me, the strategy that you guys embarked on didn't work, I'll say, yeah, absolutely it didn't work. But the totality of the action ended up being positive. Ultimately, the return of Coca-Cola Classic made the company stronger. Simon's assessment was confirmed by Roberto Goizueta, the late chairman and chief executive of the Coca-Cola Company. He hired Simon back at Coca-Cola in 1993. "Judge the results," said Goizueta. "We get paid to produce results. We don't get paid to be right." Embrace failure. How can you help yourself learn a new definition of failure and develop a different perspective concerning failure and success? By making mistakes. Chuck Braun of Idea Connection Systems encourages trainees to think differently through the use of a mistake quota. He gives each student a quota of 30 mistakes to make for each training session. And if a student uses up all 30, he or she receives another 30. As a result, the students relax, think of mistakes in a whole new light, and begin learning. As you approach your next big project or assignment, give yourself a reasonable mistake quotient. How many mistakes should you expect to achieve? 20? 50? 90? Give yourself a quota and try to hit it before bringing the task to completion. Remember, mistakes don't define failure. They are merely the price of achievement on the journey toward success. 4. How do I get started? The first step toward success is leading yourself exceptionally well. Have you ever worked with people who didn't lead themselves very well? We often think that self-leadership is about making good decisions every day, when the reality is that we need to make a few critical decisions in major areas of life and then manage those decisions day to day. Here's a classic example of what I mean. Have you ever made a New Year's resolution to exercise? You probably already believe that exercise is important. Making a decision to do it isn't that hard, but managing that decision and following through is much more difficult. Let's say, for example, that you sign up for a health club membership the first week of January. When you sign on, you're excited. But the first time you show up at the gym, there's a mob of people. There are so many cars that police are directing traffic. You drive around for 15 minutes, and finally find a parking place 4 blocks away. But that's okay, you're there for exercise anyway, so you walk to the gym. Then when you get inside the building, you have to wait to even get into the locker room to change. But you think, that's okay. I want to get into shape. This is going to be great. You think that until you finally get dressed and discover all the machines are being used. Once again you have to wait. Finally, you get on a machine, it's not the one you really wanted, but hey, you'll take it, and you exercise for 20 minutes. When you see the line for the shower, you decide to skip it, take your clothes, and just change at home. On your way out, you see the manager of the club, and you decide to complain about the crowds. She says, "Don't worry about it. Come back in 3 weeks, and you can have the closest parking place and your choice of machines." Because by then, 98% of the people who signed up will have dropped out. It's one thing to decide to exercise. It's another to actually follow through with it. As everyone else drops out, you will have to decide whether you will quit like everyone else or if you will stick with it. And that takes self-management. What successful people must self-manage? If you want to be successful and gain credibility with your boss and others, focus on taking care of business in these 7 areas. 1. Manage your emotions. It's important for everybody to manage emotions. Nobody likes to spend time around an emotional time bomb who may go off at any moment. Leaders and other successful people know when to display emotions and when to delay them. Sometimes they show them so that their teammates can feel what they're feeling. It stirs them up. Is that manipulative? I don't think so, as long as people are doing it for the good of the team and not for their own gain. Because leaders see more than others and ahead of others, they often experience the emotions first. By letting the team know what you're feeling, you're helping them to see what you're seeing. Other times leaders have to hold their feelings in check. In his book American Soldier, General Tommy Franks wrote about a devastating incident that occurred in Vietnam when he was a junior officer and the example that was set for him in this area by Lieutenant Colonel Eric Antilla, who put the men he commanded ahead of his own emotional needs. I studied Eric Antilla's eyes. I knew he was gripped by anguish, but he never let it show. We were at war, he was commanding troops in combat. And his quiet resolve in meeting this catastrophe gave us all strength. In an hour he would grieve, but now he stood rock solid. In war, it is necessary that commanders be able to delay their emotions until they can afford them. Point 1. When I say that successful people should delay their emotions, I'm not suggesting that they deny them or bury them. The bottom line in managing your emotions is that you should put others, not yourself, first in how you handle and process them. Whether you delay or display your emotions should not be for your own gratification. You should ask yourself, what does the team need? Not, what will make me feel better? 2. Manage your time. Time management issues are tough, but they are especially difficult for people who are neither at the top or bottom of an organization. Leaders at the top can delegate. Workers at the bottom usually punch a time clock. They get paid an hourly wage, and they do what they can while they're on the clock. People in the middle who are trying to be successful are often expected to put in long hours to get work done. Because of that, they need to manage their time well. Time is valuable. Psychiatrist and author M. Scott Peck said, "Until you value yourself, you won't value your time. Until you value your time, you will not do anything with it." In What to Do Between Birth and Death, William Morrow and Company, 1992, Charles Spezzano says that people don't pay for things with money, they pay for them with time. If you say to yourself, in 5 years, I'll have put enough away to buy that vacation house, then what you are really saying is that the house will cost you 5 years, 1/12 of your adult life. The phrase spending your time is not a metaphor, said Spezzano. It's how life works. Instead of thinking about what you do and what you buy in terms of money, instead think about them in terms of time. Think about it. What is worth spending your life on? Seeing your work in that light just may change the way you manage your time. 3. Manage your priorities. Most people are generalists. They know a lot about a lot of things. However, most successful individuals are highly focused. The old proverb is true, if you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape. So what should you do? You should still try to get yourself to the point where you can manage your priorities and focus your time in this way. 80% of the time, work where you are strongest. 15% of the time, work where you are learning. 5% of the time, work in other necessary areas. This may not be easy to achieve, but it is what you should strive for. If you have people working for you, try to give them the things you aren't good at but they are. Or if possible, trade some duties with your colleagues so that each of you is playing to your strength. Remember, the only way to move up from the middle is to gradually shift from generalist to specialist, from someone who does many things well to someone who focuses on a few things she does exceptionally well. The secret to making the shift is often discipline. In Good to Great, Jim Collins wrote, "Most of us lead busy, but undisciplined lives. We have ever-expanding to-do lists, trying to build momentum by doing, and doing more. and it rarely works. Those who build the good to great companies, however, made as much use of stop doing lists as the to-do lists. They displayed a remarkable amount of discipline to unplug all sorts of extraneous junk. Point 2. You must be ruthless in your judgment of what you should not do. Just because you like doing something doesn't mean it should stay on your to-do list. If it is a strength, do it. If it helps you grow, do it. If your leader says you must handle it personally, do it. Anything else is a candidate for your stop doing list. 4. Manage your energy. Some people have to ration their energy so that they don't run out. Up until a few years ago, that wasn't me. When people asked me how I got so much done, my answer was always, high energy, low IQ. From the time I was a kid, I was always on the go. I was 6 years old before I realized my name wasn't settled down. Now that I'm past 60, I do have to pay attention to my energy level. In thinking for a change, I shared one of my strategies for managing my energy. When I look at my calendar every morning, I ask myself, what is the main event? That is the one thing to which I cannot afford to give anything less than my best. That one thing can be for my family, my employees, a friend, my publisher, the sponsor of a speaking engagement, or my writing time. I always make sure I have the energy to do it with focus and excellence. Even people with high energy can have that energy sucked right out of them under difficult circumstances. I've observed that leaders in the middle of an organization often have to deal with what I call the ABC's energy drain. Activity without direction, doing things that don't seem to matter. Burden without action, not being able to do things that really matter. Conflict without resolution, not being able to deal with what's the matter. If you find that you are in an organization where you often must deal with these ABCs, then you will have to work extra hard to manage your energy well. Either that or you need to look for a new place to work. 5. Manage your thinking. Poet and novelist James Joyce said, "Your mind will give back to you exactly what you put into it." The greatest enemy of good thinking is busyness. If you find that the pace of life is too demanding for you to stop and think during your workday, then get into the habit of jotting down the 3 or 4 things that need good mental processing or planning that you can't stop to think about. Then carve out some time later when you can give those items some good think time. That may be 30 minutes at home the same day, or you may want to keep a running list for a whole week and then take a couple of hours on Saturday. Just don't let the list get so long that it disheartens or intimidates you. I encouraged readers in thinking for a change to have a place to think, and I wrote about the thinking chair I have in my office. I don't use that chair for anything else other than my think time. I've discovered since the book's publication that I didn't explain clearly enough how to correctly use the thinking chair. People at conferences told me that they sat in their own thinking chairs and nothing happened. I explained to them that I don't sit in that thinking chair without an agenda, just hoping that a good idea hits me. What I usually do is think about the things I've jotted down because I couldn't think about them during a busy day. I take the list to my chair, put it in front of me, and give each item as much think time as it needs. Sometimes I'm evaluating a decision I've already made. Sometimes I'm thinking through a decision I will have to make. Sometimes I'm developing a strategy. Other times I'm trying to be creative in fleshing out an idea. I want to encourage you to try managing your thinking in this way. If you've never done it before, you will be amazed by the payoff. A minute of thinking is often more valuable than an hour of talk or unplanned work. 6. Manage your words. Legendary basketball coach John Wooden said, "Show me what you can do, don't just tell me what you can do." Successful people value action. And if they are going to stop what they're doing long enough to listen, the words they hear need to have value. Make them count. In the Forbes Scrapbook of Thoughts on the Business Life, Triumph Books, 1995, Émile de Girardin is quoted as saying, "The power of words is immense. A well-chosen word has often sufficed to stop a flying army, to change defeat into victory, and to save an empire." If you wish to make sure that your words carry weight, then weigh them well. The good news is that if you manage your thinking and take advantage of focused think time, you will probably see improvement in the area of managing your words too. David McKinley, a successful leader in a large organization in Plano, Texas, told me a story about something that happened in his first job after graduate school. He was preparing to make an important call on someone, and he decided that he should ask the top leader to go with him. When they got there, David, in his enthusiasm, just wouldn't stop talking. He didn't give his leader a chance to do anything but watch until the very end of their visit. As they returned to the car, David's boss told him, "I might as well have stayed at the office." He went on to explain how his presence was superfluous. David told me, "I learned a huge lesson that day about staying in bounds when I was with the senior leader." His honest counsel and correction strengthened our relationship and has served me well throughout my life. If you have something worthwhile to say, say it briefly and well. If you don't, sometimes the best thing to do is remain silent. 7. Manage your personal life. You can do everything right at work and manage yourself well there, but if your personal life is a mess, it will eventually turn everything else sour. What would it profit a person to climb to the top of the organizational chart but to lose a marriage or alienate the children? As someone who spent many years counseling people, I can tell you, no career success is worth it. For years one of my definitions of success has been this: having those closest to me love and respect me the most. That is what is most important. I want the love and respect of my wife, my children, and my grandchildren before I want the respect of anyone I work with. Don't get me wrong. I want the people who work with me to respect me, too, but not at the expense of my family. If I blow managing myself at home, then the negative impact will spill over into every area of my life, including work. Lead yourself first. If you want to influence others, you must always lead yourself first. If you can't, you have no credibility. That applies whether the influence you desire to exert is on the people above you, beside you, or below you. The better you are at making sure you're doing what you should be doing, the better chance you have for making an impact on others and being successful.